The stars had never looked so dark. From the observation deck of the flagship Dominion's Wrath, Admiral Torak watched the blue planet grow larger on his screen. Earth, a small world at the edge of an unimportant galaxy. The humans who lived there had no idea what was coming for them. Torak had conquered 47 worlds in his career. He had burned cities, crushed rebellions, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. The Valori Empire stretched across 4 galaxies, and every species they had met had learned the same lesson: surrender or die. Most chose to surrender. The ones who didn't were now dust and memory. He pressed a button on his console and spoke to his fleet. 9,500 vessels hung in the darkness of space, each one carrying weapons that could level mountains. Soldiers waited in their transports, eager for another easy victory. The intelligence reports had been clear. Humans had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no interstellar travel. They were primitives fighting with metal and gunpowder. Begin the approach, Torak commanded. Send the declaration. The message traveled at light speed toward Earth. It was simple and direct. The Valori Empire claims this world. All governments will surrender immediately. Any resistance will result in complete destruction. You have 12 hours to respond. Torak smiled and poured himself a drink. He expected the humans would argue among themselves for a few hours, then send their leaders to kneel before him. It was always the same. Every species thought they were special until they saw the size of the armada. On Earth, the message arrived during the night in Seoul. Deep beneath the city, in a bunker built to survive nuclear war, General Park Tae-ho read the transmission on his screen. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. 3 wars had taught him many things, but the most important lesson was simple: never show fear to your enemy. Colonel Kim Yuna stood beside him, studying the satellite images on the wall. She was 34, the youngest strategic commander in Korean military history. People said she was cold, that she thought like a machine. They were wrong. She felt everything. She just never let it show. 9,500 ships, she said quietly, each one larger than anything we have. I can count, Tae-ho replied. They expect us to surrender. Tae-ho turned to face her. In his hand, he held the transmission. He read it once more, then crumpled it and dropped it on the floor. What do you know about human history, Colonel? Yuna frowned. Sir, we have been fighting each other since we learned to pick up rocks. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that killed millions. We split the atom and nearly destroyed ourselves, then stepped back from the edge and kept going. He looked at the screen showing the alien fleet. These creatures think we are primitive. They think we will kneel because their ships are bigger than ours. Will we? Tae-ho smiled. It was not a kind smile. Get me a line to every military command on Earth. And Colonel, tell them to prepare for war. Within 3 hours, the newly formed United Earth Defense Council had made its decision. Representatives from every nation sat in bunkers and secure rooms around the world, connected by encrypted channels. They argued, shouted, and threatened. Some wanted to negotiate, others wanted to run. But in the end, they all agreed on one thing: humanity would not surrender. The response went out to every military base, every ship, every soldier. The message was short: do not surrender, do not negotiate. Fight with everything you have. Make them pay for every inch of ground. In Washington, the president ordered the nuclear arsenals to full readiness. In Beijing, generals mobilized the largest standing army on Earth. In Moscow, submarines received orders to surface only to fire. In London, Paris, Tokyo, and 100 other cities, air raid sirens began to wail. But it was in Seoul where the true planning began. General Tae-ho had been chosen to lead the United Earth Defense, and he had already started to work. Maps covered every wall. Officers ran between stations, shouting orders and receiving reports. Colonel Yuna stood at the central table, moving pieces across a holographic display of Earth. They will attack the coasts first, she said. The major cities: New York, Shanghai, London, Tokyo. They want to break our will quickly. Then we make the cities into traps, Tae-ho replied. Let them land. Let them think they are winning. Then we close the doors and burn them. An officer approached with a tablet. Sir, we have received responses from the civilian population. They want to know what they can do. Tejo took the tablet and scrolled through the messages. Millions of them. Ordinary people asking how they could help. Factory workers, teachers, students, farmers, all of them ready to fight. Tell them to build weapons, he said. Tell them to dig trenches. Tell them that every human on this planet is now a soldier. The 12 hours passed. The Valori received no surrender. Admiral Torak stood on his bridge, genuinely surprised. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever refused the first offer. Scan their defenses, he ordered. His lieutenant, Vren, studied the readouts. They have primitive aircraft, chemical-powered missiles, and ground forces armed with projectile weapons. Their naval vessels are slow and poorly armored. They have nuclear weapons, but our shields can easily absorb them. No energy weapons, none detected. Torak laughed. He actually laughed. They think they can fight us with bullets and bombs. These creatures are even more foolish than I thought. He turned to his communications officer. Send the order. Begin the invasion. I want this world pacified within 3 rotations. The fleet moved forward. Thousands of ships descended toward Earth's atmosphere, their hulls glowing with heat. Dropships launched from carrier bays, carrying soldiers and war machines toward the surface. On the ground, humanity watched them come. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Civilians retreated to shelters. Children cried in their mothers' arms. The sky turned dark with enemy vessels. In his bunker, General Tejo lit a cigarette and watched the screens. Beside him, Colonel Yuna was calm as stone. They are coming, she said. Yes. Tejo blew out smoke. But they don't know what they are walking into. They studied our technology. They measured our weapons. They calculated our strength. He smiled grimly. But they didn't study our history. They don't know what we do to invaders. The first Valori dropships touched down on the coast of California. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready, expecting terrified humans running in panic. Instead, they found empty streets, silent buildings, a city that seemed abandoned. Then the first explosion tore through their ranks, and the real war began. The explosion killed 30 Valori soldiers in an instant. Before the survivors could react, gunfire erupted from every window, every rooftop, every shadow. Humans appeared from nowhere, firing weapons that should not have been able to hurt advanced alien armor. But the Valori had made a mistake. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, plasma bolts, laser beams, particle cannons. They had never faced an enemy that still used metal bullets. The kinetic rounds punched through their defenses like paper. Soldiers fell screaming, purple blood spreading across American streets. Across the world, the same scene repeated itself. In London, Valori dropships landed in Trafalgar Square and were immediately surrounded by tanks hidden in the underground tunnels. In Tokyo, suicide drones crashed into troop transports before they could deploy. In Moscow, snipers picked off alien officers from kilometers away. But it was in Busan where the first true victory happened. Captain Lee Min-ho was 31 years old. He had served in the Korean military for 12 years, and he had never seen combat like this. His company held a position in the industrial district, a maze of factories and warehouses that the Valori thought would be easy to clear. They were wrong. Min-ho had spent the last 3 days preparing this trap. Every building was rigged with explosives. Every street had hidden pits filled with sharpened metal. His soldiers knew every corner, every hiding spot, every escape route. The first Valori squad entered his kill zone at dawn. Minho watched them through his scope, tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms, carrying weapons that glowed with blue energy. They moved with confidence, scanning for threats but finding nothing. Wait, Minho whispered into his radio. Let them get deeper. The aliens advanced. 20 of them, then 50, then 100. They spread out through the streets, checking buildings, finding them empty. Their commander signaled for the dropship to land and bring reinforcements. Minho smiled. Now, the world exploded. Buildings collapsed on alien soldiers. Mines detonated beneath their feet. Gunfire poured from hidden positions. In the chaos, Minho's soldiers attacked with knives and axes when their guns ran empty. They fought like animals, screaming with rage, refusing to retreat even when wounded. The Valori had never seen anything like it. These primitives should have run. They should have surrendered when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they charged directly into plasma fire, trading their lives for alien blood. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 200 Valori soldiers lay dead. Minho had lost half his company, but his survivors stood among the bodies of their enemies, holding captured weapons and screaming victory. Above Busan, the Valori dropship tried to retreat. It never made it. A missile from a hidden launcher struck its engine, and the ship crashed into the sea. Beneath the waves, Admiral Choi Ha-jin watched the wreckage sink past her submarine. She was 53 years old, a veteran of the Korean Navy, and she had been waiting for this moment. The Valori sensors were designed to detect energy signatures and metal hulls moving through space. They had not been calibrated for Earth's oceans. The salt water confused their readings. The pressure at depth blocked their scans. Ha-jin's submarine fleet moved like ghosts through the darkness. "Target the landing craft," she ordered. "Fire at will." Torpedoes launched from a dozen submarines. The Valori ships above had no warning. Explosions tore through their hulls from below, and burning vessels fell from the sky into the water. Ha-jin watched them sink with cold satisfaction. In 1 hour, her fleet destroyed 47 enemy ships without losing a single submarine. But the greatest blow came from beneath the mountains of Korea. Dr. Baek Suji had spent 11 years building something impossible. In a classified facility under Daejeon, she had developed an electromagnetic pulse weapon, larger than anything ever created. The military had told her it was too unstable, too dangerous, too unpredictable. They had cut her funding twice. She had kept working anyway. Now she stood before her creation, watching the monitors that showed 200 Valori ships in low orbit above Asia. Her hand rested on the activation switch. "It might not work," her assistant said. "It will work," Suji replied. "It might kill us. Then we die fighting." She pressed the switch. The pulse erupted from the facility like a wave of invisible fire. It traveled upward at the speed of light, passing through the atmosphere and into space. When it hit the Valori ships, their systems died instantly. Navigation failed. Life support stopped. Engines went dark. 200 vessels fell from the sky. Suji watched them burn as they entered the atmosphere. Streaks of fire across the heavens, each one a ship that would never hurt anyone again. She sat down slowly, her legs suddenly weak. "It worked," she whispered. Aboard the Dominion's Wrath, Admiral Torak stared at his casualty reports. 412 ships lost in the first 6 hours. Thousands of soldiers dead on the ground. The humans had not panicked. They had not surrendered. They had fought back with a ferocity that defied all logic. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His lieutenant, Vren, pulled up combat footage from the surface. Torak watched humans charge into plasma fire without hesitation. He watched them destroy their own buildings to kill the soldiers inside. He watched a wounded man crawl toward a Valori officer and detonate a grenade in his hands. "They are insane," Vren said quietly. "They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They are primitives. They have no technology, no shields, no proper weapons. With respect, Commander, they do not seem to need them." Torak turned away from the screen. His hands were shaking. In 40 years of conquest, he had never lost 400 ships in a single day. He had never seen soldiers who refused to surrender even when death was certain. On Earth, General Park Tae-ho received the first reports of victory. Busan held. The submarine fleet was hunting freely. The EMP had crippled the enemy's orbital presence. For the first time since the invasion began, he allowed himself a moment of hope. Colonel Yuna entered his office with new data. "They are regrouping. They will attack again in force." "Let them," Tae-ho said. "Every time they attack, they learn something about us. But we learn something about them too." He looked at the images of captured alien weapons and armor. "Get these to our engineers. I want to know how they work. I want to build our own." Yuna nodded. "Sir, the people are asking about the casualties." Tae-ho was silent for a long moment. Tell them the truth. We are paying in blood for every victory, but we are winning." He stood and walked to the window. "And tell them this is only the beginning." Outside, the sky was dark with smoke and fire, but through the clouds, humans could see the burning wreckage of alien ships falling like shooting stars. For the first time in history, Earth had drawn blood from the stars. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. The Valori had expected to control Earth within days. Instead, they were losing. Admiral Torak stood in his war room, surrounded by holographic maps showing the state of the conflict. Red markers indicated Valori positions. Blue markers showed human resistance. When the invasion started, the map had been almost entirely red. Now, blue was spreading like a disease. 2,800 ships lost, countless soldiers dead, not a single major city secured. "They are learning," Vren said quietly. "Faster than any species we have fought." Torak said nothing. He watched the reports scroll across his screen. Human forces had started using captured Valori weapons. Their aircraft now carried plasma cannons ripped from crashed ships. Their soldiers wore pieces of alien armor over their primitive uniforms. On the surface, Lieutenant Yoon Ji-hye was the reason for this transformation. She was 29 years old, a former engineer who had built robots before the war. When the first Valori fighter crashed near her town, she did not run. She walked toward the burning wreckage, pulled out her tools, and began taking it apart. It took her 4 days to understand the basic systems. The engine used a fuel source she did not recognize, but the principles were similar to human technology. The weapons were more advanced, but they still followed logic. Energy in, energy out, point and shoot. By the end of the first week, she had rebuilt the fighter. By the end of the second week, she had written a manual explaining how to repair and modify alien technology. By the end of the third week, factories across Earth were producing hybrid weapons that combined human and Valori designs. General Tejo promoted her to lead the technology division. She accepted without celebration and immediately returned to work. But weapons were not humanity's only advantage. In a medical tent near Tokyo, Sergeant Nam Do-hyun watched a Valori prisoner die. The alien had been captured during a raid, wounded but alive. The doctors had tried to save him for questioning. They failed. The cause of death was not his wounds. It was infection. Do-hyun was 35, a medic who had spent years studying diseases. He looked at the alien's body and saw something the Valori had never considered. Their species had evolved on a sterile world. Their immune systems had never encountered bacteria like Earth's. He reported his findings to command. Within hours, laboratories across the planet were growing cultures of common human bacteria. Soldiers began carrying small containers of contaminated material. When they fought Valori troops, they made sure to spread the infection. The effect was devastating. Valori soldiers began dying from diseases that humans survived every day. The common cold killed them. Stomach bacteria destroyed their organs. Their advanced medicine had no answers because they had never faced such primitive threats. Admiral Torak watched his troops die from invisible enemies and felt true despair for the first time. But humanity's greatest weapon could not be measured or explained. It was something the Valori had never encountered in all their conquests: spite. Commander Shin Unji was 33 years old. She had been a test pilot before the war, one of the best in the Korean Air Force. When the invasion began, she volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Her commanders said she had a death wish. They were wrong. She had a purpose. Her brother had died in the first wave, killed when a Valori bomb struck his apartment building. She had found his body in the rubble. Since that day, she had not slept more than 3 hours at a time. She flew mission after mission, destroying enemy ships with a cold efficiency that frightened even her fellow pilots. On the 18th day of the war, she led a squadron of 12 jets against a Valori carrier. The carrier was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, carrying enough firepower to destroy a continent. Her jets were small, retrofitted with stolen alien weapons, held together with welded metal and desperate hope. The battle was suicide. Everyone knew it. Unji did not care. Her squadron flew directly at the carrier, dodging plasma fire that filled the sky like deadly rain. Ships exploded around her. Pilots died screaming on the radio. She kept flying, aiming for the carrier's hangar bay. "All units, follow me in," she commanded. 3 jets mated inside the hangar. They landed hard, crashing into alien fighters and supply crates. Yoonji ejected before impact, rolling across the deck as her plane exploded behind her. She found cover, pulled out her pistol, and began killing every alien she saw. The other 2 surviving pilots did the same. For 20 minutes, 3 humans fought through a ship designed for thousands. They planted explosives in the engine room, the ammunition storage, the command center. When the bombs detonated, the carrier split in half. Yoonji escaped in a stolen Valori shuttle. She was wounded, bleeding, barely conscious. But she was alive. 12 hours later, she was back in the cockpit, ready for another mission. Stories like hers spread across Earth. Tales of ordinary people doing impossible things. A farmer who destroyed a tank with a tractor. A teacher who led students to safety through enemy lines. A grandmother who shot down a scout drone with a hunting rifle. The Valori could not understand it. Their psychological models predicted that species surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. Fear was supposed to break resistance. Death was supposed to teach submission, but humans did not respond to fear like other species. They responded with anger. The more the Valori killed, the harder humans fought. Every atrocity created 1,000 new enemies. Every victory for the aliens was purchased with losses they could not afford. Admiral Torak sent a request for reinforcements to the Empire. He explained the situation carefully. The humans were more dangerous than expected. Their planet was a death trap. He needed more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The response came 3 days later. No reinforcements were available. Torak was expected to complete the conquest with existing forces. He read the message 5 times, hoping the words would change. They did not. His fleet was now below 5,000 ships. His ground forces were scattered and demoralized. The humans were growing stronger every day, while his army grew weaker. For the first time in his career, Admiral Torak considered retreat. On Earth, General Teo received intelligence about the enemy's declining numbers. He shared it with Colonel Yuna in his bunker. "They are breaking," he said. "Not yet," Yuna replied. "But soon," Teo nodded. "Then we push harder. No rest. No mercy. No pause. We keep fighting until every last one of them is dead or gone." He issued new orders to all human forces. Attack at every opportunity. Give the enemy no time to recover. Make them fear the night, the day, the water, the air. Make them fear everything. The hunt was about to begin. The second month of the war changed everything. The Valori had come to Earth as conquerors. Now they were prey. Colonel Oh Sunwoo floated in the darkness of space, watching the enemy command ship through the window of his stolen shuttle. He was 41 years old, a special forces commander who had spent his career doing impossible things. This mission was the most impossible of all. Behind him, 49 soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They wore suits made from captured alien technology, modified by Lieutenant Jihei's engineering teams. They carried plasma rifles taken from dead Valori hands. They had trained for 2 weeks in captured ships, learning how to move in zero gravity, how to fight in corridors designed for aliens. The command ship was called the Eternal Dominion. It coordinated all Valori operations in Earth's eastern hemisphere. If they destroyed it, the enemy would be blind and confused for days. "Final check," Sunwoo said. "Remember the plan. We breach the hull, fight to the reactor, plant the bombs, and get out. If you get separated, keep moving forward. If you get wounded, keep fighting. If you die, die killing." His soldiers nodded. They were not afraid. They had lost too many friends, too many families, too many homes to feel fear anymore. All they felt was cold, hard purpose. The shuttle accelerated toward the command ship. Alarms blared inside the alien vessel as they detected the approach. But it was too late. Sunwoo's shuttle crashed through the hull like a bullet, smashing into a cargo bay and spilling soldiers into the ship. The Valori responded immediately. Security teams rushed toward the breach, firing plasma weapons down the corridors. Sunwoo's soldiers fired back, their stolen rifles cutting through alien armor. The fight moved through the ship deck by deck. Humans died. Aliens died. The corridors became slippery with blood of two colors. Sun Wu led from the front, his rifle hot in his hands, his voice calm on the radio. Push forward. Keep moving. We are almost there. They reached the reactor room with 18 soldiers remaining. The room was heavily guarded, but Sun Wu had expected that. He threw captured grenades through the door, waited for the explosions, then charged in shooting. 5 minutes later, the guards were dead and the bombs were planted. All units, fall back to extraction point, Sun Wu ordered. They fought their way back through the ship, losing 6 more soldiers. 12 humans made it to the shuttle bay. They stole a Valori transport and flew away just as the bombs detonated. The Eternal Dominion broke apart in a ball of fire. Debris scattered across orbit, and human forces on the ground cheered as burning pieces fell from the sky. Operation Reaper was a success. On the surface, the war had become something even more brutal. Kang Nari was 17 years old. Before the invasion, she had been a student in Seoul, worried about exams and friends and the future. Now she was the leader of a resistance network that stretched across Korea. It had started small. After the Valori killed her parents in the first bombing, Nari had hidden in the ruins of her neighborhood with other survivors. They were scared, hungry, and alone. But Nari refused to give up. She began organizing them, teaching them how to hide, how to scavenge, how to fight. Word spread. More survivors joined. Within weeks, she commanded thousands of fighters who operated from tunnels, sewers, and ruined buildings. They attacked supply convoys, destroyed communication equipment, and assassinated alien officers. The Valori called them terrorists. Nari called them patriots. On the night of her 11th successful mission, the aliens finally caught her. She had been planting explosives at an ammunition depot when a Valori patrol spotted her. She fought back, killed 3 of them. But there were too many. They dragged her to their base and threw her in a cell. The commander who interrogated her was named Vrek. He was tall and cruel, with scars on his face from previous battles. He wanted names, locations, plans. Nari gave him nothing. They tortured her for 2 days. She did not break. On the 3rd day, they decided to make an example of her. They dragged her to a public square and broadcast her execution across every frequency, hoping to terrify the human resistance into submission. The broadcast showed Nari kneeling in chains, surrounded by alien soldiers. The Valori commander read a list of her crimes. The execution weapon hummed with deadly energy. Nari looked directly into the camera. Her face was bloody and broken, but her eyes were clear. "My name is Kang Nari," she said in a steady voice. "I am 17 years old. I am not afraid. Kill me if you want. There are 1,000,000 more like me. We will never stop fighting." The weapon fired. Nari died without looking away. The Valori expected her death to break the resistance. They were wrong. The next morning, 40,000 humans launched coordinated attacks across 5 continents. Every member of Nari's network struck at once, targeting supply lines, communication towers, and command posts. The attacks were savage, relentless, and devastating. By sunset, the Valori's entire ground operation was crippled. Admiral Torak received the casualty report in silence. 3,100 more ships lost. His ground forces had suffered 70% casualties. The humans were not just defending anymore. They were hunting his troops through cities and forests, picking them off one by one. His lieutenant, Vren, entered the room with a tablet in his shaking hands. "Sir, we have received a transmission from the humans." Torak took the tablet. The message was from General Park Tae-ho. It contained only 3 words. "Now we hunt." Torak threw the tablet against the wall. It shattered into pieces, but the words remained burned in his mind. In his bunker, General Tae-ho watched reports of the coordinated attacks. Colonel Yuna stood beside him, her face unreadable. "The girl's death inspired this," she said. "Her death gave them something to fight for," Tae-ho replied. "The Valori thought they could scare us into submission. They do not understand that every martyr creates more soldiers." He turned to the map showing enemy positions. The red markers were shrinking every day. The blue markers were spreading. Issue new orders, he said. No more defense. Every unit is now on offense. I want them to feel hunted every moment of every day. I want them to forget what sleep feels like. I want them to know that Earth will be their grave. Yuna nodded and began transmitting the orders. Outside the bunker, the sun was rising over Seoul. Smoke still filled the sky, and the distant sounds of battle never stopped. But for the first time since the invasion began, humans were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And far above, in his crumbling flagship, Admiral Torak began to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. He had attacked a species that did not know how to surrender. Now it was too late to escape. The final battle began on a Tuesday. Admiral Torak stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, watching the last of his fleet gather in orbit. What had once been 9,500 vessels was now less than 400. Most were damaged. Many could barely fly. His soldiers were exhausted, sick, and terrified of an enemy they could not defeat. He had sent 17 requests for reinforcement. 17 times, the Empire had refused. The conquest of Earth was his responsibility, and his failure was his alone. Sir, Vren said quietly, the humans are launching. Torak looked at the tactical display. Dozens of contacts were rising from Earth's surface. Human ships, built with stolen Valori technology, modified and improved in ways his engineers could not explain. They should not have been able to build a fleet in 2 months. They should not have been able to learn space combat so quickly. But humans, he had learned, did many things they should not be able to do. Captain Jang Ki-hyun sat in the command chair of the Seoul's Fury. It was Earth's first true warship, built in secret shipyards beneath the mountains of Korea. The hull was made from melted Valori metal. The weapons were hybrids of human and alien design. The crew was young, undertrained, and absolutely fearless. Ki-hyun was 36 years old. He had been a naval officer before the invasion, commanding small patrol boats along the coast. Now he commanded a warship that could destroy planets. All ships, report status, he said, into the fleet channel. One by one, the human vessels responded. 37 ships total. Some were barely larger than fighters. Others were converted cargo vessels with weapons welded to their hulls. None of them matched the power of a Valori warship, but they had something the aliens did not. They had nothing left to lose. Begin attack run, Ki-hyun ordered. Target the flagship. Kill their admiral. The human fleet accelerated toward the Valori formation. On the bridges of the Earth ships, crews began chanting old war songs. Korean, Chinese, American, Russian, Japanese, every culture, every language, united in a single purpose. The Valori fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts filled the space between the forces like deadly rain. Human ships exploded. Metal fragments scattered across the void. But the survivors kept coming, returning fire, punching holes in alien hulls. Ki-hyun watched 3 ships die in the first minute of combat. He felt nothing. There was no room for grief, only purpose. Focus fire on their engine sections, he commanded. Disable them, then board them. Boarding parties had been Yuna's idea. The humans could not match the Valori in ship-to-ship combat, but they had proven their superiority in close quarters. Every Earth vessel carried soldiers ready to jump across the void and fight inside enemy ships. The tactic worked. Valori captains found their bridges invaded by screaming humans armed with plasma rifles and knives. Hand-to-hand combat erupted across the fleet. The aliens were taller and stronger, but the humans were faster and more vicious. Admiral Torak watched his fleet being torn apart and knew it was over. All ships, retreat, he ordered. Maximum speed toward the jump point, but the humans had anticipated this. Sun Wu's special forces had captured a Valori navigation ship days earlier and learned the location of their exit route. A second human fleet was waiting there, hidden behind a moon, ready to close the trap. The retreating Valori ships flew directly into the ambush. More explosions, more death. The alien fleet scattered in panic, each ship trying to find its own escape route. But there was nowhere to run. Human ships hunted them across the solar system, picking off stragglers, destroying engines, leaving crews to suffocate in the cold dark. On the Dominion's wrath, Ki-hyun's ship was closing fast. The flagship was massive, heavily armored, designed to survive anything. But the humans had learned its weakness. The shield generators were located on the underside of the hull, protected but accessible. All batteries, target the shield generators, Ki-hyun ordered. Everything we have. The Soul's Fury unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma bolts, missiles, kinetic rounds. The other human ships joined in, focusing their fire on a single point. The flagship's shields flickered, weakened, and finally collapsed. The next volley struck the hull directly. On his bridge, Admiral Torak felt his ship shudder and die around him. Power failed. Lights went dark. The sound of explosions echoed through the corridors as human boarding parties breached the hull. Vren appeared at his side, wounded and pale. "Sir, we need to evacuate." Torak shook his head. "There is nowhere to go." He sat in his command chair and waited. The sounds of fighting grew closer. Screams and gunfire. The smell of smoke and blood. When the humans finally reached the bridge, Torak did not resist. He watched them enter, their faces hidden behind masks, their weapons raised. One of them stepped forward and removed his helmet. It was a young man with cold eyes and a scar across his cheek. Sunwoo, the same soldier who had destroyed the Eternal Dominion. "Admiral Torak," Sunwoo said, "you are defeated." Torak looked at the human who had destroyed his fleet. "How?" he asked. "You had nothing. No technology, no experience, no chance. How did you beat us?" Sunwoo smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You studied our weapons," he said. "You measured our strength. But you did not study us. You did not learn what we become when someone threatens our home." He raised his rifle. "We become something worse than you can imagine." The shot echoed across the bridge. Admiral Torak died in his command chair, surrounded by the ruins of his ambition. Of the 9,500 vessels that had come to conquer Earth, only 17 escaped. They limped back toward Valori space, their drives failing, their crews broken. The journey took months. When they finally reached the Empire's capital, they were brought before the High Council to give their report. The Council expected explanations, strategies, plans for revenge. Instead, the ranking survivor stepped forward. It was Vren, the only member of Torak's command staff to escape. He was thin and tired, his uniform torn, his eyes haunted by memories he would never escape. "What happened?" the council demanded. Vren was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Do not go to Earth. The humans are awake now, and they remember everything." 1 year later, humanity launched its first interstellar vessel. The UEN's vengeance rose from Earth's surface and pointed its nose toward the stars. Its mission was simple: find the Valori homeworld, make them pay. General Park Tae-ho watched the launch from a platform in Seoul. Colonel Yuna stood beside him, her hair gray now, her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were bright. "They thought they were conquering cattle," she said. Tae-ho smiled. "They woke up wolves." Far across the galaxy, the Valori Empire began building defenses. But deep in their hearts, they knew the truth. Humanity would not stop at defense. The aliens had shown Earth what war looked like. Now Earth would show them what war really meant. The stars themselves would learn to fear the name humanity.